Hello, my name is Kenneth Shakesby, and I have come to read an excerpt from my book, which is called From Schooldays to the Arctic Circle and Beyond. I hope you will enjoy the reading. Thank you. Phil Gay, the skipper, we heard him on the VHF say, give his wife and family all his love, as well as those of all his crew members. Believe me, it was unbearable to hear this. I was crying and my fellow crew members was also shedding tears. We did manage to get a small target on our radar, which we believed was the Ross Cleveland, and for a few brief moments, we actually saw some faint light in the distance. Please remember that the wind was greater than force 11, and it was snowing constantly with a black frost as well. Conditions were out of this world. We looked on our radar, the small target just disappeared from the screen, so we looked with our naked eyes to see if we could see anything of the Ross Cleveland. As between the snow squalls, you get a blinkering of the vessel's lights, but we saw nothing. The crew on board the Kingston Garnet, which was my vessel, we were just numb. The atmosphere was terrible. No one was speaking. They just sat there with their thoughts, possibly wondering, which will be the next ship to go down? Will it be us? Nevertheless, our skipper forged ahead with his orders to get us to safety. Those were the longest 18 hours of my life. I felt so tired and helpless. I had completed my 18 hours duty, so I was relieved and went to the mess room, still fully rigged and on standby in case I was needed. I must have fallen asleep, sitting up, as when I was waking up, I thought I was in a dream. The ship was as steady as a rock, as if we were sailing on a swimming pool. It was unbelievable. I gathered my senses and staggered onto the deck, gazing around in amazement. The sea was flat, and we were going slowly up the fjord with large mountains on each side of us. During the dark hours and with gale-force winds, you tend just to get your head down and get stuck into the job you are assigned to do, so you don't take in too much of the surroundings. In the daylight, when you look around, you can appreciate what has happened. The ship was nearly one full block of ice. Never have I seen anything like this before, and neither had the older crew members. All our working wires, which were going to the blocks on the forward mast, were normally about 1.5 inches in diameter, but then, covered in ice, I could not even wrap my arms around them. It was incredible. The pilots who came aboard close to the jetty and the skipper berthed us alongside for security. The skipper's intentions were to stay at the dock and reinstall all the damaged antennas which had been broken or lost in the storm and get everything in good shape for sailing out when the weather let us. It was a big relief, as for days we had been tossed about listening to the Ross Cleveland with his sinking, and I think we, the crew, were traumatised. We hadn't been able to catch up or sleep or rest, so alongside the jetty, we knew we may be able to do this. Once we secured to the jetty, we saw some other vessels follow us. I think there were another 4 or so trawlers from Hull, 2 from the same company, which was BUT. We went on board to give our feelings and assist if we could in any way. So, as best as we could, we went back to our vessel, cleaned up and put on clean clothes and set off on the shore. We ended up at church in the fjord, which was called Icy Fjord, and saw other crews doing the same. This, I do believe, was some kind of guidance from the Lord Almighty, as nothing had been arranged between ourselves and the other vessels. We all entered the church still carrying this strange feeling, and when we got inside, we saw that all the locals had come to pray for their loved ones, children and adults alike, who had been drowned or maimed in the bad weather crisis. The local villages used boats for their main transportation purposes, even getting the children to do the main ports for school runs. You can imagine how many people had been affected by this storm, which had literally occurred on their doorstep. It was horrific. The church was absolutely packed with young and old alike. Everyone moved into their places, and please appreciate the situation. At this time, the Icelandic people were very restricted in the English language, and us, we didn't speak Icelandic. The priest, who was Icelandic, of course, was standing nervously near the pulpit, trying to seat everyone, all of whom were terribly upset. We had one deckhand with us on board our vessel. His name was Doc Holliday from Westbourne Street on Hessel Road. Doc was a great bloke. Nothing was ever too much for him. He walked up to the pulpit and exchanged a lot of hand signals with the local priest, and next thing we know, Doc is in the pulpit asking everyone to pray. He was talking and praying, and I will never ever forget, as very few people there could speak or understand English, and there was Doc from Hessel Road praying and talking to the flock. At that moment, it did not matter which language you spoke. It was amazing, as everyone was on the same level. It was such a moving service. And at the end, all the locals came to us fishermen and tried to say words of comfort. We, in return, were attempting to do the same. Handkerchiefs was everywhere. It was amazing and touching. After the church service, we fishermen started to stroll back to our ships to see what the latest news would be regarding the weather conditions outside. When I arrived on back of our ship, Kingston Garnet, I wrote a letter to my wife to tell her that we were all safe, and we continued with our operation.